Okay, so this is another method that you could use for your project if you wanted. I'm just going to call this one like kind of the fake digital painting look because it's not really, doesn't look like a sketch. So with this one, you're going to go ahead and again start with your image, and it's actually going to be kind of the same steps to start off with. So I'm going to do Control J to duplicate my layer, and I've already cut myself out. We can talk about that later again with the object selection. But I'm just duplicating myself. And then I know in our last demo they were talking about using color dodge and inverting, but that's like an extra step. You can also just use this divide blend mode right here and your image pretty much disappears. So I'm going to use my divide mode instead of doing the color dodge and inverting. I'm just having that layer and dividing. So again, got my layer here, Control J to duplicate. I'm going to go to the blend mode, divide, and then I'm going to bring my image back with filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and this is the exact same steps that we did in the last process. You know, you're going to play with this until you have the outlines. I think there's pretty good, and if it is easier for you to see what the overall image is going to look like, you can add your black and white on first, or I'm just going to add it on afterwards, like so with my hue saturation, and I can bring my slider down. So again, that's the hue saturation, bring the slider down. You can also do a black and white layer. You know, you can do that. And then the other option is doing the gradient map. It really doesn't matter which one you use, okay? But we'll just stick with hue saturation because that's what we did for the last process. All right, so far it's like exactly the same, right? It's the exact same process that we did before. Now, here's where it gets like a little bit different. I'm going to do a special key. So I'm going to create this merged layer. So I'm going to do Control, Shift, Alt, and E. I remember this because it's like all the special keys. Shift, Control, Alt, and E. E for everything, right? And then Shift, Control, and Alt, those are all special keys, right? And what this does, it's going to create a composite, kind of merge all the layers, but it merges them up. So let me, oh gosh. Let me go back to where I was. So I guess I was here, right? All right, so I'm here. If you want to, you can adjust the levels. All right, so you can adjust the levels to make that like nice and dark black. All right, and then I'm going to do my special, my Shift, Control, Alt, and E. Shift, Control, Alt, and E. And you can see what that does. It's creating this composite layer on top. It's merging all the layers right here. And I'm going to do that again. Shift, Control, Alt, E. Shift, Control, Alt, E. Okay, so that's just merging all the layers on the top of your layer stack. Okay, I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to ignore this one layer for a second. I'm going to duplicate it. And then here's where I get that kind of fake digital painting look. I'm going to go up to, make sure your colors are set on black and white. I'm going to go up to Filter, Stylize, and then it's Oil Paint. Filter, Stylize, Oil Paint. Heads up, if you've got a lot of things open, this is pretty render intensive. It might crash your computer. So save if you have a lot of things up or if you've done a lot of complicated steps that you can't get back to. All right, so filter, stylize, oil paint. And when you open up the oil paint, you're going to turn off the lighting. Make sure this box is not checked. Okay, it's not checked. You can have preview on. I know for my picture, I'm just going to pump this all the way up to 10 for everything. And as you can see, it is kind of like smoothing this out, giving me that fake digital painting look. I'm going to say okay. And the reason I made this second layer underneath is because I'm looking at this and it's pretty good, but I noticed the eyes, like that looks weird. That does not look good, right? So what I'm going to do for the eyes, like I don't mind all this stylization on the hair and on my shirt and the clothing. That's all fine. But the eyes, they look kind of weird. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off this layer for a second. I'm going to go back to this one, and I'm going to do the oil paint again, but a little bit less intense and make it just look good for the eyes. So I'm going to say Filter, Stylize, Oil Paint. And this time I'm going to take my little preview box and I'm going to drag it over to the eye, and I'm going to make sure that these are down so that way this doesn't look so weird. So I'm going to bring all these down, and then maybe, let's see, just play with these so the eyes look a little bit less bizarre. And when I like that looks better. I'm going to say okay. Now I'm going to turn this layer back on, and it's going to get rid of what I did. I like how everything else is smoothed out, but the eyes are not good. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to go on my mask. I'm going to add a mask, and I'm basically going to cut out this picture so I can show the eyes from the picture underneath. Okay, there we go. I like those eyes much better. Okay, so all I've done is in this little mask, basically cut a little hole so that way I can see this layer that's below, right? I don't like the rest of that for the face and the clothing. I like it really nice and smooth, but for the eyes, it was just getting a little too crazy. So let me show that whole thing again. All right, I've got my original image. I'm gonna duplicate it. I'm gonna change my blend mode to divide. I'm gonna go to filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and again, this is all just a repeat of what we did in the last thing. Let's see, then I did what? We made it black and white with hue saturation. So we drain out all the color with the saturation slider, and then we can use our levels to make that like a nice rich black. I can move these middle values around too if I need to. I can bring the white ones this way. I don't need to for this image. I like that, so I'm going to say okay. And then I'm going to create my composite layer. So that's Shift, Control, Alt, E. And I'm going to duplicate that because one I'm going to use for my eyes and then one I'm going to use for the rest. So this one is going to be for my eyes. I'll just label this eyes. And then this is the faux digital painting. All right, so let me go ahead and do my oil paint, filter, stylize, oil paint. And I'm gonna knock this up to 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. And I'm gonna keep my lighting unchecked. And I think that smoothed out everything really nicely, except the eyes are looking a little bit weird. So I'm gonna cut a little hole for my eyes. There we go. And if you wanted them to be like, you know, photo crisp, okay. But I'm gonna go back to this layer and I'm gonna filter, stylize, oil paint that so that way it blends in a little bit better. So I'm gonna maybe do like, I don't know, 2 for all these levels or something. Just a lower number. Let's see. That way it's giving a little bit of something. It doesn't look, you know, like the photo, but it's not too extreme. And I'll say okay, and there we go. Now I'm happy with that. Okay, so then I would save that, and that's kind of my like fake digital painting look. All right, I'll save a copy, and that's that.